Hi, VoiceOver Jermaine here. Now, a lot of times when I compare a mid-range phone to another mid-range phone or just test a mid-range phone, there are comments about using Gcam, because they always say you should use Gcam, you should compare it with Gcam, then the Gcam will make that phone better, and the other phone somehow doesn't get Gcam, but that's a different detail. But anyway, seeing how people comment about this, I felt the best way to compare the Gcam versus a stock version is to use the same phone. And that is what we are doing today. We are comparing the Nokia 7.2 stock camera app versus the Gcam. Let's find out which one performs better. But let's just jump straight into it. And this is a quite well known structure in RNM. It's been there for a very long time. Anyway, the first thing that I straight away notice is that there is a lot more contrast on the Gcam version. You can see more separation because of it between every single tree. Also, the blues have more saturation to it than on the stock version. What I also notice is that it has a better dynamic range. See the corner for instance, where there is better light control and of course shadows that are better controlled as well. And then we go to this second shot. Now this is a shot of a leaf and straight away you can tell that there is more contrast to the version of Gcam. Also you can notice that there is better light control. On the left side of the shot on the stock version there's quite a bit of a flare and that was where the sun was. But you can tell that the background has a better dynamic range control on the Nokia stock version. However, with that being said, there is also quite a bit more grain to it. Now again on this one you can tell straight away that again there is more contrast on the Gcam version. This is something that you will see repeated on every single picture basically. Also you can notice that there is again less grain on the version of Gcam, but the Nokia one was a bit more realistic. It wasn't as contrasty as you've seen on the picture of the Gcam version. Also because of the contrast there is a bit more separation with this white dot that is on this leaf. You can see it clearer with the Gcam version because of the contrast itself. And here again there is quite a bit of a difference with the contrast itself. Straight away what I can tell is that I do like the Gcam version a lot better. There's more depth to it and it feels more natural. However, with that being said, because of the contrast itself, the trees on the left side do have more shadows to them. Again, for myself, I really don't mind this. It's something that makes a shot more dramatic and it just looks better for me. Now on this next shot, while the color on the structure itself was better on the stock version, it also has some problems with overexposure on the stock version. Not to mention that the blue sky has more saturation on the Gcam version and again, you can see that there's more contrast to it. Again, the bushes on the bottom do have a lot more contrast to them as well, and this means that it has more shadows and it seems that the dynamic range is because of it better on the stock version. And again for this shot we go for the same thing. The Gcam version has more contrast to it, but the stock version does have the better dynamic range seemingly. However, I do prefer the version of the Gcam. I like how it has more depth to it and not to mention it has better control of the flares as well. Which basically is repeated on this shot. Again, the better contrast on the Gcam and better flare control, however the dynamic range is better on the stock version. Now on this video I both recorded them at 1080p and 30 frames per second. I could have done it in 4K but I felt like the 1080p was more stable and more utilized properly, so I felt like that was a bit more fair to compare the both of them. However, with that being said, I don't think you should look at dynamic range because on one shot I'm actually a bit behind the trees, so it's harder for the phone to capture than the dynamic range behind those trees. So we're just gonna focus on what we are seeing in this, and the thing that I noticed is that the Gcam version does have a bit of an issue with recording focus points. So that's something that I did notice. In short, while not making this daytime comparison part too long, I want to say that in basic, the contrast is better on the Gcam version and also better flare control. With that being said, however, the dynamic range is better on the stock version. For myself though, I would have a bit more contrast to the image itself and a lesser dynamic range. Too much dynamic range isn't always good and it can make an image look flat, where on the Gcam version it does that better. There's more depth to it and something punches out more to you, which I do prefer. Sometimes though I do notice that the saturation on the Gcam version is a bit much for me. I like it better when the colors are a bit more natural. I do have to say though, because this is probably the Snapdragon 660, sometimes you can have this purple effect on pictures. But I do want to show it and I still have this bridge picture where you can see this purple haze around it. So it's something that is in there, and it's probably down to the Snapdragon 660 not able to process it properly. But we're going to talk about that a bit more later on. And then we go to low light, and straight away what I can tell you is that the stock version simply gets outperformed by the Gcam version. While it has more saturation in most pictures, that doesn't really reflect the reality. I do have to say that it has more sharpness overall on the Gcam version. Also, it is just better controlled overall, and it seems to get more light in. Now this is probably down to actually the stock version not properly utilizing the night mode. It's weird, but it's just there for a blink of an eye, and then it's like, okay, we're done with the night mode. So that is the main difference that you will notice in this comparison. Now straight away on this building I can tell that there's more saturation to the blue itself. However, with that being said, I take that over what the stock version has performed here. It's very soft again on the stock version. However, with the Gcam version you get quite a bit of details with it. You can easily read what is on the round sign. However, on the stock version it's so soft that it's mudded out those letters a bit. It just doesn't look that nice on the stock version. Again though, it's a cheap phone, but still, this is quite noticeable. Now again though, this is Gcam. It doesn't perform any magic where it performs really well on every single camera. Because you can clearly see that on both of these, it's really struggling. It gets more colors in on the Gcam version. However, the lights on the background, they were a quite saturated green color. And here it just looks like a light blue with a mix of green in there. It is not the best color representation. However, with that being said, the statue difference is huge. On the Gcam version, it has so much more sharpness, so much more detail than on the stock version. And again, in this picture, it's pretty much the same story. It has more saturation on the Gcam version. However, everything is more readable. It's sharper, it looks crisper, it looks cleaner. Everything works. Where on the stock version, again, it's really soft. And again, this is something that I said in my review as well about the Nokia 7.2. That in low light, it really likes to make everything look way too soft. And the funny thing is, while I comment that Nokia is doing well with colors, sometimes in low light you can tell that it goes for a bit of a warmer tone, especially using night mode. And in this picture, by the way, the difference is crazy. While both have problems with the flares of the light itself, you can tell that there is so much more detail and so much more sharpness. It's kind of mental that this is taken on the same phone. The tree is so much clearer and you can see individual bricks on the version of the Gcam. Where on the Nokia version it is all mudded out, where you can see that there should be bricks there. It's harder to see that it's actually there. And this can simply result in a picture that actually looks quite good for a phone like this, compared to something that just doesn't look that nice. Again, I know this is a budget phone, but when you look what Gcam can do with the pictures in low light, it's such a big difference, where one is easily shareable, where the other is just, that's not the greatest picture that you can take. And it looks really nice on the Gcam version, but on the stock, it's mudded out, the colors aren't there really, and it's just a bit of a mess and way too soft. It's quite noticeable, and I feel like that is quite impressive what Gcam is doing here. So again, to make this not too long and compare too many shots, in nighttime or in low light basically, the Gcam destroys the stock version. It's so much better. It's miles ahead of what the stock version can actually do. Again, I feel like Nokia is not utilizing that night mode at all. It's taking too short to actually take a picture with it. Sometimes when it's even completely dark, it still refuses to properly use that. And it's just too short to capture the details that it needs to capture to then combine that and make a good picture. With the Gcam, it does tend to take quite a bit longer, but in turn, it looks so much better. I don't know, now you're gonna say, Gcam it is. I'm gonna download it straight away and use it on my Nokia 7.2. I would say, hold on to that thought, because there is an issue. Now, if you are willing to wait a bit longer, quite a bit longer, then yes, I would say get the Gcam version, especially for low light shots. In daytime, again, it's a preferable thing, where sometimes people just want the better dynamic range, and well, the stock version does perform better there. However, there is a problem with the Gcam version, and this is probably down to the Snapdragon 660 not being the best performer out there. It's really slow. Even when you take pictures, you see that it skips frames while taking that picture. It doesn't work that well. Not to mention that after you have taken the shot, you will still see a status bar of it actually processing the image when you take a picture via Gcam. And again, when you want to switch to the camera, it is really slow. So while in low light the performance is so much better, it does come with a cost, because it makes the phone a lot slower in general. I don't know why it affects the phone that much, but it just makes it quite a bit slower in response, and not to mention again that it takes a bit to process the image, and if you then take a second image, it can actually mean that the image isn't saved that you have taken before, so do keep that in mind. Again, I do see there is quite a bit of a difference between the two versions, especially in nighttime. However, with that being said, Gcam isn't always the answer in my opinion. It is a lot of software and it can result in pictures that don't look as natural as it should be. However, again, in low light, I'd rather have Gcam installed compared to the stock version, especially when it comes to, of course, the Nokia 7.2. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you thought of the results. Do you prefer in daytime especially the Gcam version or the stock version? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and talk to you guys in the next one.